Hi, everyone. So usually on this channel, I talk about writing, not like writing with a T. Maybe half of my videos are about that, the process of writing, writing theory, tips and structure and strategies and sentence appreciation, one of my favorite books and why and how to write them and some history of writing and grammar and I mean, that's the most common topic. The umbrella above that is just education in general. I am a professor by trade. That's what I do. And today I'm going to be talking about education in general because for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, something like this, probably 200 people have told me, like smart, well-intentioned people have told me that, oh, I really need to get AI in my classroom. I need to incorporate it into my curriculum. I need to start training students how to use it. I'm as like negligent if I'm not training students how to use AI. And there are so few sentences that these people's mouths could make that I disagree with more. And I'm not saying I'm right. I mean, if majority rules, I am very probably wrong because it's like 200 to 1. I am the only person I know who has my opinion. If you're listening and you share it, like, I don't think AI belongs in the classroom either. I think students should be using their brains. And if minds are an extension of brains, they should be using that. But further extensions, apps and whatever, that doesn't belong in the classroom. If that's your opinion, okay, you share mine, and we are now the 1%. Now it's 2 against 200. But for everyone else who's enthusiastic about AI in the classroom, just hear me out for a few minutes and try to unclench your bias, because it's not like AI is like resembles a programming language, a C++, a Python, a Java, HTML. That's the only one I know. I learned it like 30 years ago, and nobody uses that one anymore. But it doesn't matter which programming language we're talking about. From a user's perspective, they're all the same in that they're really complicated. And it requires a lot of effort to learn, a lot of attention to learn these things. AI isn't and doesn't, right? It's not complicated from the user's perspective, and it requires no effort to learn. So why would I teach it in the undergraduate and graduate classes? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can just go to a middle school and find a below average intelligence student and give them a computer and say, look, for your after school hour, part of your afternoon here, you need to learn how to use GPT. GTP is guanine triphosphate. I teach physiology mostly. So I know it's not that one, it's GPT. I don't use any of these things. So I have a bias too that I should admit before starting this. I've never used a single one of these things. But give the student a laptop and say, all right, for the next hour, get as good as you can at this. After that hour is up, maybe they're not masters of it, but it's at least passable expertise. And so why would I, in a college class, teach 20-year-olds how to use? I mean, it is at least pompous and something more egregious than oblivion. If I were to assume that a 45-year-old faculty member understands, better than 20-year-olds do, the latest tech, unless I'm a computer science professor, that would be an exception. But I'm not. I teach physiology and epidemiology, several physiology courses. So let's talk from that perspective. I like when students try to use, chat fill in the blank consonants, or any of these other ones, Deep Blue and DeepSeek. Who cares? When they try to use any of the Deep Blue was the chess thing for the beat Kasparov. When they try to use any of these, they get the wrong answer most of the time. So this is the easiest to learn software there is. I mean, it's plain language interaction. There's nothing easier than that. And it's in the context of my curriculum, it is the worst student in my class. Why would I teach students? It makes no sense that I would set aside time and all right, let's not cover mTOR and enzymatic functioning, and let's set all of these things aside and let's talk. Or why not just talk about the cell phone? The cell phone is so critical to we use this so much in everyday life. So I'm going to set aside some lectures to talk about the cell phone. That's the same thing. When people are telling me no, I mean, this is critical to the workforce. I mean, the employment, whatever industry you want to go into, it doesn't matter. It's all being taken over by AI. And if you're not familiar with it, you are, obsolete. Like, oh, okay. But like again, the students already know AI better than all the faculty do. Again, accepting, computer science. And B, I think there's a faulty assumption here. The assumption that AI in its current iteration, the interface that people use, these LLM interfaces that people are presently using, are going to be around for the long haul. You graduate in a couple years, you enter your career, 10 years into your career, you're still going to be using these chatbots exactly as they function today. That's so ludicrous. It never happens. I mean, to me, that sounds like saying, all right, students, you're going to be graduating in a couple of years. You're going to enter the workforce. You have to learn Betamax. If you want, sorry, I'm like holding in hiccups. If you want to be a part of the advancement of civilization, you want to be on the frontier, the dissemination of information, you want to be a part of it. You want to be in that crowd. You got to know Betamax. You have to understand it. Let me set aside, cell signaling and talk about, or like the fax machine. Industry is no longer snail mail. You have to understand faxes, and you have to send messages that way. You have to send and receive. You have to be efficient. People are waiting in line behind you. You got to be good at this stuff. Otherwise, you're off the workforce. There's like 1,000 examples. Like the pager. You have to know how to use a pager. I mean, this is contact of the future. It's going to be around forever. Let's not talk about, I don't know, like inflammation, and pathologies and the process of healing and what cells are doing. Instead, let's talk about pagers. Or like MS-DOS. This is what I grew up using, is MS-DOS. I mean, I still have, as though they're like old, childhood phone numbers, commands in MS. It's just like a cursor and you type in your commands. I mean, it's like the world's simplest programming language. And oh man, if you don't know MS-DOS, the whole world is moving into a computerized workforce. You gotta know MS-DOS. I mean, otherwise you are just ill-equipped for any job you set out to do. Aside from being a baseball player, you gotta know everything. This is just so ludicrous to me, like how all of it, and like the latest chat, again, G, whatever, consonant. This is going to be just as obsolete in a couple of years. And, it's not like mastering that is going to set you up to master the next, in the same way that, it's on this side, like the rotary phone is not a prerequisite for the cell phone. One does not, prepare you to use the other, and the cell phone does not set you up to do whatever comes next, and nobody knows what's coming next. My job as a professor is to position people for success in the after graduation years. And I used to know how to do that, and then the world changed, and it keeps changing, and nobody alive has good advice about how to be ready for what comes next. If someone says, here's exactly what you need to do and what you need to study and what you need to learn and what your skills you need to develop, distrust that person. They're selling something that you probably don't want. Nobody knows, I least of all, but it seems reasonable that a valuable trait to develop is intelligence. It's independent thinking. It's to be reflective and thoughtful, to healthy and nurture a sense of skepticism, and just empathetic, deep thinking about all of this strikes me as useful no matter what happens. Right? Develop your brain, and AI almost certainly is subtracting more from this process than it is adding to it. And I'm pretty sure every professor agrees with me. I know 199 out of every 200 are just enthusiastically embracing change of every single kind, no matter what. And I think they're being disingenuous. I think deep down, in their guts and their soul, and whatever else is brewing and stirring in the, like guttural, soup. There is where they feel this deep aversion to a lot of these large language model intrusions into education. I know this because when they talk about it, when they champion it, when they embrace it so wholeheartedly, it's like so dissonant from their feelings. I can see it in their eyes. I can see it on their face. It is grating to hear that noise, that sentence that they're making about their support and their enthusiasm. Oh, their eyes. That's a crazy person talking. Now, again, in 5 years, looking back, I could be totally wrong about all of this, but I think the only reason that people are championing change of every kind is they're terrified of being perceived as a Luddite, of like opposing change that ended up being a good thing in the end. They just live in sheer terror that their reputation will be tarnished by a future impression of their past self. And so they're just operating in terror. And I don't think terror is good reasoning. I think if we're teaching people how to use their minds and be skeptical and thoughtful and deep and reflective, terror is not a governing principle of what should come out of our mouths. I think if we're all more honest, we would have better conversations, and education would be very different, and politics everything would be so different. And, again, I may well be a Luddite in 5 years, but at least I'm honest. And you can say the same thing about, 15, 20 years ago, people were like, these social media networks, I really don't see this being good for youth. And like, oh, you're just a Luddite. Nope, they were right. And so it's not like all change is good in the end. And we need to bolster it and champion it and push it forward and embrace change of every kind because all of it is good. Not the case. We just need to be honest, even if we look like fools in the future. And I hope that helps you write. I had no dismount. I just had these thoughts on my mind. So I hope this helps your writing, and I hope this helps. I don't know if you're a professor. I hope your classroom is. I have nothing good to say. So I'm just going to end it here before I derail any further.